Here you're ready for your dose of reality.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Doctor Quack podcast. I'm Doctor Quack.
And I'm the important one, Mr. Mayhem, and welcome to Wrestlemania 3!
Oh my God. Yeah, we finally reached this. The pinnacle of sports entertainment, as it's called here. This was considered one of the greatest pay-per-views. Let's see how it stacks up between myself and Mr. Mayhem.
I'm going to say right now, off the top, you're in for a good show because this show still holds up pretty well by today's wrestling standards. So let's talk about it. What we got up first?
Well, the first thing I want to bring up, and I found this personally to be one of the better renditions of, America the Beautiful, and that was Aretha Franklin. The Queen of Soul came out there and sang. That I felt was great setting of the table with her doing that.
Yeah, and she's probably the only person who was not employed by the WWE to sing it more than once.
Yeah, I mean, she was incredible.
And you can always feel it here from Aretha Franklin. So great job, Miss Franklin.
Yes,
great job.
So our commentators for this show was Gorilla Monsoon with Jesse Ventura, with Bob Uecker and Mary Hart kind of filling in.
Very underrated. Very, very, very underrated. Bob Uecker, for those of you that don't know, that's all three of you out there left in the United States. Bob Uecker's been doing play-by-play for the Milwaukee Brewers for over 40 years. And he's very, very good at it. He's actually in the MLB Hall of Fame for his announcing abilities and his play-by-play ability. He brought a lot to the show.
Yeah, and he's a WWE Hall of Famer, too. On that section. Yeah, we count them, right, still? Okay, so
they get the Geico clap for that.
Okay. This opening match was Bob Orton and Don the Rock Morocco. No cast for Bob Orton this time, with Mr. Fuji taking on the Can-Am Connection, Rick Martel and Tom Zink.
This match, you could tell that Morocco was starting to get a little older. His leg was wrapped. He looked like he was having a little trouble moving around. He didn't look crisp. The match was too silly. Now, it was a good opening match to set the tone for Mania 3. It wouldn't go over well. It would be the popcorn match of today. But all in all, they did a good job of getting the crowd involved in it. I gave it 2.5 stars.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like this opening match, compared to the first two, was a lot better. It looked more in sync with how to set the tempo of a match.
It did. It was definitely way too heavy on the faces, on the kayfabe word of the day. Face or baby face. People that are seen as being cheered by the crowd. Remember that, you jabronis.
There you go. There's your lesson. I gave it 3 stars. I felt that it was probably the best one of the first 3 WrestleManias, by far.
That's fair.
Yeah, also on the card here, we had Billy Jack Haynes taking on Hercules with Bobby the Brain Heenan. Woof. By the way, Strikeforce won that match.
Woof. Wow. I grew up, again, for those of you who didn't know, I grew up with a big fan of Pacific Northwest Wrestling. Billy Jack Haynes was a big deal in Pacific Northwest Wrestling. His feuds with Rip Oliver, his feud with Roddy Piper, his feud with Buddy Rose, incredible.
Yeah.
This was not that. Oof. Double count out. Instead of going into how bad this match was, because to say 1 3/4 stars is what I gave it is not fair, because it should have been a lot lower. But let's look at Hercules Hernandez and Billy Jack Haynes, two guys who were pretty well put together in the 80s, but by today's standards, Hercules would be slightly above average and Billy Jack Haynes would be average. So let's just talk about, how much different the workers look today than they did 30 years ago.
Oh my God, big difference. And they were on the gas more back in the 80s.
Yes.
I gave it 2 stars, and there's a reason why. Mainly the match, it was kind of, but the change shot, which is not hard to make look good, but I thought this was probably the best one I ever seen when Hercules hit Billy Jack in the head and the blood started to come out. Oh, I'm sorry, kids. Blood is when it comes out of the head. You don't see that on WWE television anymore. But overall, it was, that was probably the best part of the match.
And that's why I gave it 1 3/4, because the stuff at the end, otherwise the match felt very rushed. It felt like they didn't want to be there and they didn't know what they were doing, or they were told, all right, you got all this 15-minute match plan, get it out there and do it in 5 minutes.
Pretty much. It was a solid start to the WrestleMania 3 card there. King Kong Bundy, Little Tokyo, and Lord Littlebrook against the Haiti Kid, Little Beaver, and Hillbilly Jim. 6-man intergender. How did you feel about the midgets being in there?
I wish we could have more midgets in wrestling. I know, social justice warriors, you freaking morons. Things are funny. They're allowed to be funny. This is wrestling. It's not real. Stop getting involved.
What did you say? Did you say it wasn't real?
Yes, wrestling is not real. Wrestling is entertainment or soap opera for men. But you know what? We still love it.
That we do, I'm telling you. Hillbilly Jim's team ended up winning by disqualification with Bundy big splashing Little Beaver.
Good for Little Beaver.
Little Beaver was splattered all over that.
And he sold the hell out of it.
Yes. It looked great.
I gave this match 2.5 stars. It was after the intensity and the juice that we got from from Hercules and Billy Jack. The crowd needed a little change of pace, and this was a great example of that. Putting the midgets out there, let them do their thing from the 80s, which is the last time the midgets were good. The stuff that TNA tried to do in the first year, that, again, it's not real. They were having fun. The midgets got a huge payday from this show. Social justice warriors, leave them alone.
Plus, you got to see a little rowboat action. That was probably one of my favorites.
I've always loved that spot, even though it's corny. It should be done every match, but it needed to be done in this match. I gave it 2.5 stars. It was a good fun match.
Yeah, and I was agreeing with him on that with 2 stars, 2.5 stars there. But yeah, every mention of the boiler. Yeah, get hit in the boiler. I'm like, that is classic.
Give it up for the boiler.
That's right. So yeah, following that was Harley Race with Bobby the Brain Heenan and the ladies champion at the time, the Fabulous Moolah, taking on the Junkyard Dog, where the loser had to bow to the winner.
This is where WWE did something very well, and they forgot how to do it. The 30-second recap is really all that's needed. We don't need a 15-minute recap for an 18-minute match. You have to take into account, I understand the Paul Heyman philosophy of always introduce yourself so that everybody who hasn't seen you knows where you're at, but at the same time, you've got to learn a little restraint, a little control. So that's my take on that. This match, very, very one-sided. Junkyard Dog had almost all the offense, a very aging Harley Race bouncing around the ring, and one belly-to-belly suplex, which wasn't even his finisher. He used the cradle suplex, but one belly-to-belly suplex and the match is over. This one feels the same as Hercules and Billy Jack. Hey, I know you got this all planned out, but cut for time.
How would you rate it?
Because it's Harley Race, I gave it 1.5.
You gave it 1.5. I gave it 2. And I think because of the whole rivalry, back when I was a kid, I was always focused on that. And, the chair shot at the end really did it good with Harley Race getting crowned. And Junkyard Dog just walking out with the robe on.
Yeah, but nobody will beat Oliver Platt.
This is very true. Jimmy King. So I gave it 2 stars there. The Rougeau brothers taking on the Dream Team. That would be Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Greg the Hammer Valentine. It was just Johnny V and Dino Bravo, not Johnny Bravo. Sorry.
Well, you know me. Sorry.
Yeah, wrong Bravo there.
Sorry.
Dream Team ended up winning with outside interference. How did you see it?
This match, they seem to have forgotten the storytelling part of how they were going to dump Brutus Beefcake. Yes, Brutus Beefcake gets the pin after the interference from Dino Bravo, and then unceremoniously dumped. There was nothing to indicate this on the pay-per-view. Nothing. And so the match really didn't have a storytelling. It was just, let's go out there, kill some time until it's time to take it home. So, all in all, the action was decent enough. I gave it 2 stars.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it 3. I actually felt like it was a good up-tempo to the match. I'm still laughing, you know, the way my mind works with the Russo Brothers finisher over here, the teabagger, as I call it. How do you take your groin and hit somebody square in the face when they're getting held up? I just don't understand it, but it was too hilarious not to comment on.
Maybe that's why he's called the Mountie.
The Mountie! See? We learned about gimmicks today. I think that was a solid 3-star match, plus it set up, you know, Brutus Beefcake. Adrian Adonis with Jimmy Hart taking on Roddy Piper. Loser loses their hair match. And it was supposedly Roddy Piper's retirement match.
Yeah, until he came back at WrestleMania 5 and had his war of words that was not great, but better than it should be.
Yeah.
So, but we're not jumping ahead of ourselves here. Adrian Adonis and Roddy Piper. Poor Adrian Adonis. Such a talented guy who just let himself go. He was, I think he died like a year and a half later in a car accident.
Yeah.
He was falling apart. And Roddy Piper's match, while good, 2.5 stars is what I gave it. There was too much Jimmy Hart involvement. I know that was the story they were trying to tell, was that Jimmy Hart was the one that caused the sneak up, so he's trying to get revenge. I didn't buy it. I just didn't buy it. And Beefcake coming out at the end made absolutely no sense. I know he just got turned on, but what, was he sitting out there waiting? Johnny Valiant and Jimmy Hart, with the exception of their butt names, both start with J. They have no tie to each other. So I don't get the tie in there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
But I gave it 2.5 stars.
2.5? Yeah, I mean, I gave it 3.5. I felt like, because it's such a memorable moment when seeing, you know, after the match with Adrian getting his head shaved and then him punching the mirror, you know, and the crowd was erupting. You know, I felt like the aftermath of that match is what really helped do that. Plus the strap being brung out and being swung on, I was popping for that.
Yeah, but I felt that the crowd, with the exception of the opening with the strap and when Beefcake came out, were flat.
Yeah.
So that I took that down a level of a feud that had that much meaning behind it. They were kind of flat on it.
There you go. So you see a little bit of difference here. 3.5, 2.5, you know. We'll say 3 in the middle, I guess, right? Is that right, Marks?
And I get this next one because this is my show, and I've been letting you have too much, so it's my turn.
Oh.
So up next, we got the greatest tag team of all time, the Hart Foundation, with the wrestling manager, Jimmy Hart, and the great Danny Davis against Tito Santana, and a very good tag team in the British Bulldogs. So what did you give it?
What did I give it? I mean, I thought it was a solid match. It was a good setup to the future matches to set in the card. The fact that Danny Davis used the megaphone and went over on Davey Boy Smith really kind of just irked me, you know, but it was funny to watch. I gave it 2.5.
Nice. I gave it 3 stars. The match was very good. And for those of you that didn't know, Danny Davis, referee Danny Davis, for several years on the WWE cards, when they needed an enhancement talent, he was known as Mr. X. So he'd been a wrestler for many, many, many years, as well as referee. So this was his time to come out and have a little fun. You could tell he looked confident and knew how to move in the ring. I mean, that part of that being a referee, part of that being a wrestler.
Yeah.
My biggest downfall with the match was no Cell Billington. The Dynamite Kid getting punched in the head and just sitting there.
Yeah, he did.
So I feel that this match was this match or the couple of matches coming up could have been what took them into intermission. They chose this one.
Yes.
But either way, it was a good solid match to take them into intermission to kind of let people, all right, we had a really good send-off, now it's time to go ahead and get some popcorn and get ready for the next show.
So what'd you rate it?
I gave it a 3-star.
You gave it a 3-star. Okay, so we're pretty close on everything, how we're seeing it. Butch Reed was Slick, taking on Coco Beware. Butch Reed ended up getting the victory on that, and Tito Santana came out and beat up Slick.
I will say this, for a lower card match, this shouldn't have been this high on the card. This was the first match coming out of the intermission. I wouldn't have put this as an intermission match, but in some ways I would have. It's a low card match. It was decent. You know, there was a little bit of story, the rivalry there going on, but it wasn't very well told coming into the pay-per-view. The match was decent. Slick getting his comeuppance, which is something the crowd had been wanting for a while, brought this match from 1.5 to 2 stars.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the best part of this match was probably the commentary between Ventura and Monsoon. Just the wisecracks that Jesse was pulling, you know, and Tito beating up Slick and making his suit look all sorts of obnoxious.
Hey, Slick owned that. Unlike every other manager, Slick owned that.
Yes, he did later on the card. I gave that 2 stars.
Which is what I gave.
Yeah. I mean, so you're moving down the line. Now, Macho Man Randy Savage with Elizabeth taking on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat with George the Animal Steel for the Intercontinental Championship. They had a heated feud, and everybody thought Steamboat was going to be out of wrestling.
And it was done well. They had a good package, about a minute long, to catch people up to speed with what was going on. And even explained why George the Animal Steel was there. They had a nice little package with that. This is often seen as the greatest match in WrestleMania history.
That's what it's generally called.
My answer is it's not, but it is still a 4-star classic. It is not the best match in WrestleMania, and I have 2 reasons why I do not say it is the best match in WrestleMania history. One, if Randy Savage was injured as badly as he was, he did not come out as intensely as I thought he should have to sell the "you tried to end my career." And Randy Savage didn't work on the throat enough. He did it a few shots in the beginning, and then after that, it was typical Randy Savage match. So while it was a very good, very technically sound match, and I gave it 4 stars, the important one says it's not the greatest match in WrestleMania history. You can take that to the bank.
And we go by the Meltzer scale of 5-star matches here. I mean, I consider it as close as you're going to get. I don't give 5 stars to any match, but I would give this one a 4.5. This is truly, you know, the pin attempts coming out of there with moves and coming out left and right. You're figuring, okay, this has got to be the finish. This has got to be the finish. You know, this was actually a match I enjoyed. And George Steele, of course, you know, being himself, always trying to linger towards Elizabeth. It's always pure comedy.
And for those of you that are sitting here thinking about becoming wrestlers, or you're on the independent circuit, this match is definitely, that is the example of how to do the several false finishes in a row properly. Doing 30 doesn't mean that it's the best. They have to mean something.
Right, and that one there, yeah, it truly, you know, it helped that match beyond measures. So here we go. Jake the Snake Roberts with Alice Cooper taking on the Honky Tonk Man with Jimmy Hart. Pretty, yep.
Honky and Jake. 2 guys who were not all that terribly athletically gifted. Put on a really good crowd match, especially after the intensity of the IC championship and all the up and down and up and down. They needed something that was a little slower, a little easier to understand, something to kind of And Jake and Honky did that very well. I gave it 2.5 stars. It wasn't a great match. It didn't deserve 2.5 stars by all measures of athletic work, but in the totality, it's a 2.5 star match.
I went with 3 for mainly one reason. I'm with you on the match on the 2.5, but the 3 was the afterfight. But when you were having that thought process of Jimmy Hart taking on Alice Cooper, I was like, yeah, we're getting ready to get double matches here. I would have wanted to see that. Who would you have taken in that if it went down?
The amazing thing, you don't realize how big Jimmy Hart is because he was around all those guys till you saw him and Alice Cooper in there. He was taller than Alice Cooper, he was thicker than Alice Cooper, and while Alice Cooper would have probably been coked up, I don't know this, it's a joke, folks. He was smaller than Jimmy Hart, and Jimmy Hart taking bumps where Alice Cooper hadn't, he's probably better shape. I would have picked Jimmy Hart.
See, I think I would have went with Alice Cooper, man, because, dude, he has snakes. Gorilla Monsoon said it in the commentary. I'm going with that statement.
I've never seen somebody in a fight swing a snake.
I never have either.
I know you're the horror movie guru, but I've never seen it. So, take it to the bank. Jimmy Hart wins. 1.5 stars.
Yeah. All right, so the big one here is, yeah, Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov taking, with Slick, looking out there in his own glory, taking on the Killer Bees with, debut Hacksaw Jim Duggan at WrestleMania.
Well now. You know, I'm going to be fair to this match. I was not a B. Brian Blair fan. I was not a Jim Brunzell fan. I didn't like the Killer Bees. They came from a style of wrestling that I thought was passé as a kid. Should I hit him? But this match was a great, classic example of storytelling tag team wrestling. All in all, I gave it a 2.5 stars.
Yeah, that's exactly what I got. 2.5 as well. I mean, it wasn't a horrible match. I liked it, but I felt like because you had all the matches before, it wasn't as strong, and I felt like that whoever booked this was like, okay, this is going to be your bathroom break match.
And that's what I felt too. I felt it was for those that could stay. This was a good semi-main event. It warmed the crowd up to get ready to go into the last break, get ready for the main event, kind of pick them up. They're not going to steal from the show, but at the same time, they're not going to lessen the effect of the upcoming match.
And finally, the irresistible force against the immovable object, Hulk Hogan against Andre the Giant.
Easy,
Bobby the Brain
Vince.
Heenan.
Stop that, Vince McMahon. No irresistible. That's Gorilla.
That is Gorilla, yeah. I would one there. You like that? Yeah. Bobby Heenan in his corner. It wasn't your, catch as catch can, technical match, but it was definitely worth watching. I gave it 4 stars. I felt like, it was the match that brought everybody to the show, and it lived up to its hype.
It was, and I will agree that it was for Andre, who was only about 6 years away from passing away from agrimelony. His back was shot. You can tell the girdle that he's wearing to kind of help support his body. As Hogan has said in many interviews, this was a passing of the torch moment. I did not give it 4 stars, although I can see why you did, and that's probably a fair rating. I gave it 3 3/4 stars. Okay. Only from the simple standpoint of Bobby Heenan. This is where Bobby Heenan started getting recognized as one of the super all-time, all-elite managers that he was. And his actions out there at ringside felt a little flat. Like Andre didn't want him there. And Andre's been known to, if he wants something, he gets it. If he doesn't want it, he doesn't get it. And I kind of felt like he didn't know what to do with Bobby Heenan out there. So that's why I gave it 3 3/4.
Yeah, I mean, we're fairly close on that. It really was one of the best matches of all time. I'd like to thank you all for tuning into this. But I'm going to let you know something here. By the way, put in the comments if there's a certain pay-per-view you want us to review. But next week, we're not going away from the WWE. We're going there.
Let me see what I've got to be studying up. This might be interesting.
Yeah.
This might be interesting. Just as long as we don't do 87.
We might have to. I don't know. Let's see what the viewers put in the comments. My name's Dr. Quack, and this is...
I'm the important one, Mr. Mayhem, and remember, have a great day.